Today we're going to be talking about Apple's first computer, the Apple I. The Apple I was designed and hand-built by Steve Wozniak. The idea of selling the computer came from Wozniak's friend, Steve Jobs. The Apple I was Apple's first product, and Woz demonstrated the first prototype in July 1976 at the Homebrew Computer Club in Palo Alto, California. Here's the first ad from the Apple I, where people would be interested in possibly buying the Apple I, and it came only as a board and manual for $75. And this was a handwritten ad. This is Apple's first ad for selling the Apple I, and you would contact Steve Jobs directly. And the computer came with 8K of memory as well, but you had to build it. So this was the one where basically it was all on one card, one board, and they were selling it for $666.66. And this computer is a big upgrade from the Altair and IMSA, which we'll demonstrate in other videos, because in this computer you were able to use a interface, a keyboard interface, versus flipping switches to actually load and manipulate memory and data. Production was discontinued in 1977 with the introduction of its successor, the Apple II. The board shown here is a Mimeo, which is an exact PCB replica of the Apple I. All the parts are date correct that are here, and the 6502 CPU right here is actually a very rare version of it. It's the MOS 6502 with a date code of the 50th week of 1976, and the 6820, which is right here, was produced on the 26th week of 1975. I suspect that I had an Apple I, but like most owners, traded it in for my Apple II. And that is why I had many of the parts that were on this chip, including the 6502 and the 6820 chip that is here. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to demonstrate it starting up and actually loading a small program into the Apple I. So the first thing is when it powers up, it's giving you random data out of the display RAM right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate a reset, and then I'm going to hit reset on the keyboard, and that will give me a slash, which is basically like a prompt indicating it's ready to get instructions. So with the Apple I, it actually had an interface right here. It only had one slot. So in the Apple II, there was multiple slots for interface and other cards. On the Apple I, there was only one bus interconnect slot. And on this bus interconnect slot, it is used to connect a cassette player. And the cassette player is basically how data would be brought in and out of the machine. So instead of using a cassette player, I am using a small iPod, iPhone iPod, which has the audio saved on it for the different programs that I would load. Now for each program, since there's no memory management, for each program you have to decide where it's been written for and in what memory locations is the program here. And there's a whole bunch of little programs that were written for this, and I can demonstrate one right now. So the first command we have to do is we have to tell it we're going to load from the cassette interface. So the command for that is C100R, and then I'm going to hit enter, right? So now it's waiting for the next command, and the next command actually tells it where I am loading this. Where's the memory location for this Apple 30th graphics demo? Now before I do that, I'm actually going to play for you what the audio sounds like, which is what you would have heard if you played a cassette tape, and you would have had a cassette player that would have played it. And it's going to sound very much like a modem. And there's a start tone, and then it actually starts the data in a second. You'll hear it. And this is the data that would be coming into the computer. That's the program. And it's in an audio form, and then it's deciphered and then loaded. So I'm going to plug this into the headphone jack. So when we do hit play, we'll be ready to load it. So I need to now load it at a memory location. So I'm going to hit 280.FFFR. And then I'm going to hit play here. So there was that lead in time. So I'm going to hit play, which is going, now I'm going to hit return. There we go. And hopefully this will load and we'll get back to slash in a couple of seconds. Now, sometimes you would have to load these things more than once. So hopefully this will take it the first time, but it may not. So right now it's loading that audio, which is basically the program data, into the computer. And yes, it got it. So now we have the little slash there. I hit pause on this. We don't need this anymore. And at this point, the program is loaded, and then we're going to say what memory location are we going to run it from. Well, if we loaded it at 280, so we're going to basically now enter 280R and then hit enter. And that should bring up this really cool little demo program, and it is running. And this is an ASCII art little program, and you can see the speed in which it runs. And this is a really cool little program demonstrating it's a 30th anniversary at the time of the Apple I. And this is an ASCII art program, and that's a picture of Steve Wozniak. And it's going to scroll on its own to the next picture. And what's cool is that this board is an exact replica of the original Apple I. You obviously have to assemble it. You have to solder everything. You have to put all the different memory in. It only has 8K of memory, this board. But it does have a very cool, obviously, interface with it. And one of the things that they advertised was that BASIC is coming. So Woz actually wrote a BASIC for this because there is a BASIC that he wrote for the 6502, a Woz BASIC, that allowed you to program using the BASIC programming language. Now, one of the things that we'll be showing in the other videos that we're going to be creating is the other machines that are coming out around the similar time of this, which includes the Commodore PET 2001 and the Tandy computer Model 1, which are similar types of machines designed for the home, small business type of market and stuff like that. This is a great machine. It demonstrates the early machines of the Apple I and obviously the excitement. And the last thing I'll talk about real quick is that when these early machines were starting to be sold, there's a shop called the Bike Shop in California where they started to sell these boards for $666. The problem with this was that you still needed to build a case, a power supply, and a keyboard in order to make it a useful machine. And one of the things that was learned there from the owners of the bike shop, they basically said that for every one of these they sell, they had 100 people that couldn't put together the power supply or the keyboard in order to build this machine. So what they wanted was a fully assembled machine. And that was actually the start of them moving on and creating Apple and creating the Apple II, which we will demonstrate in another video, which comes assembled like a working computer. It has the keyboard, it has the case, it has the power adapter, and all you need is a monitor to hook it up and to make it successful for it to work. This still required a little bit of engineering because you would have had to build and solder everything on the board, connect it, put in the keyboard, make everything work, and troubleshoot it. Where the Apple IIs came already assembled, troubleshooted, ready to go, and whether you were a hardware tinkerer, which still gave you the slots, which allowed you to interface cards, or you were a software hobbyist, you could start programming on the device very quickly. And ultimately, the Apple II was a tremendous, tremendous success for the Apple Corporation. But it all started here with the Apple I. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we are in the process of making a lot of additional videos that demonstrate and show the various computers we have in our museum. Thank you.